right, hello everyone, and welcome to CJUS 335. I'm Colin May, professor here at Stevenson University. Really excited to be with you for another weekly installment of our video lectures covering different topics throughout the book here in White Collar Crime. And today is one of my favorites. This is public corruption. And public corruption is a wide-ranging topic. It could be its own, really could be its own course. So we'll kind of get right into it. And again, actually, if you end up taking the master's program FSINV 605, there's an entire module dedicated to the Watergate corruption scandal. And I have practical exercises regarding public corruption kind of sprinkled in here and there. Yeah, really excited to kind of get right into it. So let's kind of break down a little bit. The book kind of delves into some interesting areas. The first and most prominent part is where the government is really the victim. Then you have criminal violations or fraud or some other nefarious activity where the government, either directly or indirectly, is the perpetrator. But then you also kind of have a different subset, which is unlawful or unethical conduct by government actors who are in their official role but not necessarily representing their illicit conduct through the government. It's more of a means to really get things accomplished illegally. But we're going to focus most of our time on fraud, where government is the victim, because that is the highest part, most amount focused. And unfortunately, sometimes there appears to be a lot of it. So let's define corruption first. So Oxford English Dictionary really talks about it's a destruction, it's a perversion of somebody's integrity or fidelity. And if you think about it in the context of those time-lapse videos that show a very nice piece of food, and then the time lapse goes and goes and goes, and suddenly it goes from this really appetizing, great thing to, shrunken, just absolutely disgusting. Nobody would ever want to talk or eat it. It's rotten. It smells really, really problematic. If you think about corruption, is very, very similar. It very rarely happens on the first occasion. It is a slow and steady degrading of somebody's abilities and integrity in the conduct of what they do for the government, for an agency, or with public funds. So when the FBI defines it, it is really the abuse of a position by an elected or appointed public official that violates some form of federal criminal law. And we'll get into some more of those in a little bit. And then this definition from Brightman is corruption is defined as a wrongfully using one's influence to procure a benefit for oneself or another person. And of course, you add the public into that, and it's some kind of form like an elected or appointed official or employee, government employee, or contractor. Corruption is really subverting society. So if you think about it, is rule of law is really what we're about. So you have fairness, equality, and equal opportunity, and it's really designed. The rules are designed to make sure that nobody has a private gain from public funds or because of the public position they hold. And so they really want to make sure everything's on the up and up. But corruption really eats at this, and it's a kind of a win at all costs. It's very unethical, and it enables that subversion to happen. And of course, the more people that are doing it, the more problematic it is, and the faster things start creeping slowly down. Um, this is a great quote from, I guess, a Roman or Greek philosopher. The desire for luxury, bribery for the sake of political power, and substitution of eagerness of wealth is what drives corruption. And it's the easy way out, and people get very kind of sucked into it because it's the lure of power, and people want to make money off of it. It's sad but true. This is one of my all-time favorite quotes. I actually just learned about this case, but I really like it, and I like what the judge here is saying. Basically, that regardless of what the spin is, bribery is not a victimless crime. It absolutely is it tears at the very foundation and the fabric of what a democracy, a republic is based on. It's that loss of faith that the citizens have, that the distrust, and the problems that causes. And the court here is recognizing that is a real harm. It's not just a financial loss or something like that. It is an actual there are true victims in all of these cases. So the FBI has a website, and I kind of took their broad approaches and kind of added in some of my own thoughts, but basically they're kind of the way they matrix it is, you have federal, state, and local public officials who are corrupt or doing corrupt acts, so bribery, kickbacks, extortion, conflicts of interest, and then you have kind of the more routine theft of assets, theft of funds, and then of course you have corruption of an entire agency where the for example, like a city council or a school board is predominantly controlled by individuals who are essentially using that for their own personal gain. So it becomes kind of the whole group of them. And of course, any kind of agency, school, corporation, anywhere where they're spending lots and lots of government money, infrastructure, things like that, and of course judiciary and those corruption issues are very huge. The next matrix is really the international, and that is you have foreign senior officials, government ministers, presidents of foreign countries who are actually stealing their people's money and then laundering it through the U.S. You have the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which are U.S. corporations who are trying to obtain business in another country and bribe or provide some illegal funds to those people or to agents of those principals to induce them to give you the contract. You have, this is called overseas contingency operation frauds. A lot of these are military contracts overseas. They have national security implications and are really, really critical areas. And you also have kind of run-of-the-mill antitrust violations in the international sector. And some of that, not all of that, but some of that can touch on the corruption issue. Election crimes, probably some of the most sensitive and potentially problematic investigations. The top one right off the bat, campaign finance, is probably the biggest one of the corruption issues that the FBI will investigate. The next two are actually initiatives that the FBI has started in the last couple of years to concentrate on corruption in specific areas. The first being the international border. You have customs, immigration, law enforcement at the border, who are either facilitating or being recruited or bribed to either allow safe entry or some other some other thing that they shouldn't be doing, documents, and then or being either outright extorting or stealing money or items that are seized from these criminals as they cross over the border. Kind of closely related to that is the prison environment. Bribery of corrections officers, smuggling in contraband or things that are not allowed into the prison facility, and then you have intimidation and violence and kind of enabling that and allowing that to happen. So these are all really interesting areas, and again, like I said, this could be 5 weeks right here of the course. The Association of Certified Fraud Examiners has the fraud tree, and this is the branch, if you will, of the corruption portion. So you have conflicts of interest, which is basically like self-dealing, usually undisclosed, and then you also have bribery, and then you have illegal gratuities and extortion, right? So what kind of game is it where these are happening? It really depends on who's driving the corruption. If it's a business person seeking business, if it's the official really, going after that dollar. You have intermediaries who kind of get caught up in the middle. So those are always, kind of interesting. Who's starting this? And then what is it that they're looking for? What is the official action or inaction that the bribor is looking for? And then, of course, how is it concealed? Those are always really interesting pieces of it. So let's get into some really good cases here. So this is an interesting one recently that ended in a jury conviction. Corrine Brown was a congresswoman from Florida, and she was charged in a 24-count indictment for a number of different things and was found guilty in May of 2017. Basically what they did is they started this One Door for Education, and it was a nonprofit purportedly. It actually did not have any 501c3 status with the IRS, so you couldn't take a tax write-off. It was designed to provide scholarships to students, probably underprivileged and folks from the area that she represents. She solicited and donors gave about $800,000, but only 2 scholarships were ever awarded. And when they did the analysis, it turned out that most of the money was actually withdrawn from an ATM, and then subsequently, a day or two later, the cash was deposited into into her personal bank account. It was also used to pay for other things. But her chief of staff here, Mr. Simmons, and Miss Wiley were also very centrally involved, and they were actually indicted with her as well. So I believe both of them pled guilty. So this is an example of a trucking scheme within the office, it was actually an office within the transportation division of the Defense Logistics Agency. And basically what you had here is you had an agent. So this is that intermediary who was trying to get business and facilitate more business, and he made payments to a truck driver who then distributed these payments to the supervisor and to the employee in about it's over almost $700,000 over the course of about 6 years. And again, this is all to benefit this agent and the trucking company, although they were unindicted, um, did they know about it? Probably not if they weren't indicted, but they certainly benefited and certainly have paid, no doubt, with legal fees and other things. So this is just a great example of kind of that intermediary and how people are looking to disguise these payments. So this is from Detroit Public Schools, and this is an example of again, another way that things worked. And basically, the principal of this high school was or had funds available to have an after school program for at-risk students to help them bring up their academic performance. And so she was able to select this company on the basis of the fact that she was paid a kickback to select her, the maid company. So essentially what happened was maid laundered the money through one of her employees' companies. So the employee had another company on the side. She ended up, the business wrote the other business a check. She then cashed the check and then gave the cash to the principal. So again, you kind of see how that intermediary is playing. You have kind of that follow the money. Where are the checks? Why did they go to her? What was the purpose? And then when you trace those out, you figure out that they were actually cash, and then you can go into the principal's account and see those deposits come in as well. So this is a recent case from Baltimore regarding Senator Nathaniel Oakes. And this is very new, but it's an interesting, the headline here I thought was really interesting because, again, as part of the concealment, a lot of these, you use code words. There was one case where the guy referred to a slice of pizza, and he's like, I need 5 more slices of pizza. And basically that was about $5,000. So each slice was about $1,000. So again, you'll see this if you're investigating it, and it's certainly something to pay very close attention to. And again, so there's a very critical mass of corruption investigations right now being headed out of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland that have been, a number of them have been made public. And so this is Michael Vaughn of Bowie, and he is a former delegate. And basically what he did was he was conspiring with some folks on the liquor side to be able to help them do things in that industry, get licenses and permits and things like that. And he took official actions in exchange for monetary payments. Now, interestingly enough, he actually also for 4 years diverted some of his funds to a political funds went into his political campaign committee, and then he extracted them for personal use. And he made payments for his American Express card, for his taxes, and of course, as with many things in the campaign finance area, is they get you on the reports and things like that. So, and Will Campos was probably the first one here recently. Again, there's a lot of undercover operations on these, but basically it was interesting. So in Prince George's County, the county council members are authorized about $100,000 per fiscal year that they can allocate to various nonprofit organizations to help in their community. It sounds like a very, very good, well-intentioned program, but certainly ripe for abuse. And this is clearly that. He has pled guilty, but he basically received these cash payoffs, and basically the business people would look to him for providing some official assistance that would benefit their business, and in exchange for the cash, the business people would then um, direct a nonprofit to apply for one of these grants, and then he would be able to provide those funds from the county. Uh, he had used some of the funds for foreign vacations. He also had them pay some of the bribes for campaign expenses to draw down his debt. Um, and again, anything that has either government regulatory control or government money, things like liquor, regulatory enforcement, zoning variances, a lot of money in real estate, community grants, and economic development are all areas to pay very close attention to, and are sadly ripe for potential corruption. Duke Cunningham. This is a great book. I strongly urge you, if you have any interest in this case, it's probably one of the best books out there. He was a longtime congressman. He had a substantial amount of power in the House of Representatives. He came from a district in representing a very heavy Defense Department. Had a lot of bases, had a lot of contractors. So he was the guy, and he got it done. But he was soliciting bribes on the screen there. You'll see he had a menu, an actual menu that was recovered in a search warrant, and it basically says, hey, this is for what you're looking for. This is what I will give you, or this is what you need to give me, rather. And so he had them put checks into his personal account, made payable to his company. They paid for all kinds of really nice things. I mean, the U.S. Marshals spent a lot of time dealing with the forfeiture of these items. He did things that would, on the surface, look legitimate, but when you peeled it back, were not. Things like inflated sales or fabricated sales, to conceal his ownership of these things. And then they would pay some of his bills. I mean, some major bills. And so that's just one example. I mean, this was really this case started with Jack Abramoff. If that name sounds familiar, there was a big case on that as well. So very interesting. But you very rarely see evidence of specific direction. Hey, if you want this is what I need to make it happen. And that's what the Duke was. He was a Top Gun, one of the first Top Gun fighter pilots, and boy, he did, as the book says, he had the wrong stuff in the end. Sad. So we're going to wrap it up. Really want to thank you again for being such a great class. We're on our way, so don't fall behind. Keep it up. If you have questions or comments, or want to talk more specifically about a specific case or specific topic, please let me know. Just as a reminder, again, you're going to get the course survey here in a week or two. I would really appreciate your taking the 10 minutes or so to fill that out, so that we can have some really good feedback how to improve this class, what you're looking for in the program, what you think we can do as professors, as a program, as a university to improve. So I would really ask that you take those to heart. I certainly will. Again, I won't see them until after all the grades have been submitted and finalized. So, but I really appreciate your taking the time to do that, because I spend a lot of time when those come out and dissecting it and seeing how I can improve. So I really appreciate that. So I hope you have a great week. Here's a great quote from the one and only Ben Franklin. There is no kind of dishonest into which otherwise good people more easily and frequently fall than that of defrauding the government. So I'll leave you with that. again, thanks for watching and have a great week. We will see you very soon. Take care.